We wander this existence, seeking the truth. Forbidden like Eve, eating the fruit. Knowledge they won't teach you in schools. Hidden beneath, deeper than roots. Buried in dirt. Rise like a phoenix from under the earth. A spark from a flame is all that it takes. And dark days pass. Escape from the Matrix with Arcane cast.
Love that. I love that.
I was debating on what to use, but the Batman voice sounded the best. I think it sticks to kind of the theme and stuff that we're going for. So welcome everybody to a brand new show. For everybody listening on my end, this is going to be on its own RSS feed. This will be its own show with its own YouTube and its own Rumble. We're just going to start dipping our feet into the water of this show. And welcome. This is a new show that we're going to produce and do. Most likely will be once a month if everything pans out. And it will be me, the Raptilian. And did you want to introduce yourself to the show?
Yeah, I'm Tajana, the Truthseeker 01011. I don't know. I do a bunch of things, I guess. Like we talk about conspiracies on my page, politics, and all sorts of things. So I figure, politics is getting so annoying and like depressing that we might as well go into ancient knowledge, because the Matrix told us we need to look into ancient knowledge in order to escape the Matrix. So I'm here for it.
Yeah, and that was the whole idea of the show, because I think people like our banter and our chemistry. So we were kind of talking, and we had an opportunity that fell kind of through. So we decided to do our own thing and just create our own show and have it more based on occult ancient knowledge and dive into some of the more fun aspects of searching for the truth, rather than everyone's just fighting over what master they want to rule over them. So everyone expect this to be once a month, and we're going to dive into some interesting topics that will be around an hour or so every time we get into stuff. Maybe for other things, we might do a little more of a deep dive, but might as well start with something interesting. Saturn worship. It's pretty weird, I gotta say.
It definitely is the cult of Saturn, or, actually it's almost in every single religious, astrological, astrotheological, I guess, entity is involved with Saturn, which is really interesting.
It's crazy, and the more you look into it, the more it connects to everything. And we'll be doing there is a lot to this. This could be 3 hours, but we're just going to break it down and simplify it for people that maybe don't know a lot of stuff about this. And even me, I was just kind of brushed. I watched a bunch of videos, and I knew about this stuff before, but there is a lot to it. You could probably dedicate a year realistically, almost every other day, looking into this stuff and connecting it to gematria and all these other things that these parasitic elites for some reason all connect to the same. All these religions, everyone's fighting over religion and who they want to rule over them, and it is a weird time to be alive, but there's more people awake than ever.
That is true. You know what? It's really interesting because all of this information has been out there for so long, but people have to be ready to receive the information in order to understand it fully. And I think this is a really good time, because a huge awakening started in 2020, especially after the whole scandemic thing.
And it's funny because a lot of people, there was people that did wake up and started to realize, that the government really doesn't care about them, and the people in power are only out for their own interest. But there is people that went kind of crazy, and I think are still crazy in even in the freedom fighting community, or the awake, or the truther community, whatever you want to call it. There's definitely people that have went a little off the deep end.
Oh yeah, I call it psychosis. You know what I mean? Where they can't discern the information, and it's an overwhelming feeling, that people have been lied to their entire lives. And instead of keeping grounded, they just kind of get lost in the abyss of information, and then they don't know how to put it together. And so I think they lose their minds and then get psychosis.
I think it breaks people's brains. They're a lot of people that didn't realize how bad it was, and then all this information was coming out, and then they It's like snaps their brain.
Oh yeah, and I think that's why they have to do like I guess drops of information even in movies, and they have to kind of sort of I guess groom us into the information, because like when information becomes available to those that are asleep or have been asleep and then they just wake up out of like instantly, it's almost like coming out of a coma, right? Like sometimes they put patients back to sleep because it's overwhelming going from one reality to another reality. And so a lot of people kind of can't gauge themselves, so they have to be put back to sleep and then slowly woken up
That's
again.
hilarious. Oh, lizard people! And it's like, just like, cover his mouth, go to sleep.
Go back to sleep, dude. Like, you're not ready for this awakening yet. You know what I mean?
That's crazy. So let's get into it. The Saturn cult is ingrained into nearly every aspect of our life. Yet the true significance of Saturn can be found within secret societies and the deepest underpinnings of religion. Do you ever wonder, is it possible that our reality we experience has been hijacked by creator gods who keep us living in this subversive control and conformity? Who do we look for, or what do we look forward to when it's the weekend? The weakening. It's funny because we just did, it won't be out yet, but we did an episode about, on Stranger Podcast, about like the wording, the slave code of the English language, and like when it's a work week because you're working to become weakened, and then it's the weekend because you've been weakened after working all week. It's interesting.
Interesting. I've actually gone down that rabbit hole, and it's almost insane how many words have actual like secondary meanings that we use every single day in almost a ritualistic way.
I know, and my buddy, like the co-host of this show with me, he's very skeptical, right? At the beginning, he's like, I don't know, man. And then near the end, he's like, maybe. He's like, maybe those are starting to make sense. And I was like, yeah. Because he was saying one of them was control and how it's like they're conning you and trolling you and stuff. And I was like, that one's a little bit of a stretch.
Ooh, okay. That one's interesting though.
Yeah. Well, and con man is confidence in the con that they're doing, which is a lot of people don't know that. Even why does the word Saturday, Saturn's day? Why do we exchange rings when we were married? Why is there so much Saturn symbolism in religion and in the corporate world? Saturn is named after the god Saturnus. Is not. It's not a coincidence that Saturn is called the Lord of the Rings. And you mentioned this on an episode 2 of Strange Brew about the Lord of the Rings, and there's one ring to rule them all.
Yeah, literally, Lord of the Rings has so many secret things packed in there. If you can actually decode it, you would realize that they're telling you the actual history of ourselves and why we're here and what's going on in, I guess, the spiritual world of this whole battle between good and evil. Like, it's insane. Yeah. The movie's insane.
And we were even talking recently about when Aragorn summons like the spirits or whatever, the army of the ghosts or whatever, to help defeat battles, and like it had to relate to this occult magic practices and necromancy and stuff, and it's weird.
It's pretty wild, eh?
Yeah. So you might not know, but the entire world has been worshiping Saturn for thousands of years. The cult has been stopped, and it's has never been stopped, and its rites are still present in this day. Saturn, dubbed the Lord of the Rings, is the reason why we exchange rings at our wedding or put halos on the heads of godly people. Since ancient times, sages gazed at stars, admiring their heavenly glow, and attributing them to godly powers based on the effects on humans. Before the Great Flood, Saturn was regarded by all mankind as a supreme god and ruler of kings. Occult researchers affirm that Saturn is ruled by the kingdom of Atlantis and become the divine ancestors of all earthly kings and the patriarchy. The cult has been perpetuated throughout numerous gods during antiquity, and there's so many. It's crazy. There's like Kronos, there's Saturn, there's Dionysus, Atlas, Hercules, all being connected to Saturn. Even Jesus, and there's especially people within the religious community that don't want to admit that that's probably true.
That's one thing that I found as being a creator who talks about different religions and different spiritualities, is a lot of people then get super mad when you kind of connect their religion to something else where just the names have changed. And then they like flip out. They're like, that can't be the case, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, I'm like, well, if you read every single religious text, you'll realize that there's hidden messages that you have to decode in them. And if you just read between the lines, you'll realize the connections between them, just like you're showing right now. And I'm pretty sure, wasn't it Cronus, the one who gave up an eye for knowledge?
Yeah, and then it's just like what's Thor's father's name?
I can't remember. I don't
How
know if
could
it
I
was
not
Cronus
think
or
of
was
it?
it Odin?
Odin.
Was it
Odin?
Odin?
Yeah, it was Odin. But
Odin,
there's connections to all this. Here, I'll bring this up if you want to read this for the audience.
Sure. The planet Saturn is known as the dark sun. Thus, the god Saturn is characterized as being cold, dark, and evil. In ancient Rome, he was the most evil of the gods. Today, millions of people honor Saturn. He is the Hindu Brahma, the Wiccan Pan, the Zen Buddha, the Masonic, I don't know how to pronounce that,
Yeah,
go to, I guess, go to, and the Gnostic Demiurge. Ultimately, Saturn is Saturn, but in the antiquity, he was defied Noah? Really? I didn't know that. He's symbolized by the Megan David, the Black Cube, Santa Claus, and Saturday.
Which is crazy, and we hope to do this. The next episode will be kind of something relating to Santa Claus and Christmas, because this goes really, really deep. And there's countries all over the world that connect with this Saturn worship, and even in Egyptian mythology, Isis is considered Saturn's eldest daughter. I am Isis, queen of the country. I was instructed by Mercury. No one can destroy the laws which I have established. I am the eldest daughter of Saturn, the most ancient of gods. And it's just interesting how it's, once you start to look into this stuff, especially like Zoroastrianism and how all of this stuff is definitely connected. And then people are, like a lot of people are very caught up in their religious doctrine that they can't even see through what they're being blinded by, and how this is all connects to probably all religions.
Every single one, even spirituality, if you look at it, Saturn does have like thousands of little rings, but the main rings they have, the main ring I guess Saturn has are 7. And if you look at spirituality, you have 7 chakras to you.
Mm-hmm.
So it relates to spirituality and New Age teaching as well, which is super interesting, because not only does it connect antiquity religions and things like that, but it also goes into like this whole New Age of chakras, and it's the 6th planet from the sun. So you have like the numerology there as well that would connect almost everything into, I guess, a bigger picture.
And we could, at some point, we could see it though, according to all the hieroglyphs and some of the, if you look into the Egyptians and what they were worshiping, it seems like Saturn maybe like closer than the sun was. There's a lot of weird things, and then they symbolize this throughout all ancient culture. There's like this Saturn, without the rings. It's really weird.
Really? Okay, I haven't heard that one yet. I'm gonna have to research that.
And then obviously, like there is some weird things to do with like why the cube within the top of Saturn, and how they would have known that back in the day is very weird also. And like, could they see it? So the reason for ancient Babylonian mystery cults was that the cults were dedicated to the worship of Saturn. Like the House of Judah were dedicated to also worshiping the tabernacle of Saturn. Judaism developed as a cult that began to worship Yahweh exclusively and gradually usurped competing religious cults. This is much how Jupiter betrayed his father, Saturn or Kronos, as well as many fellow Olympians. There is many parallels between Yahweh and Jehovah and Saturn. And that's why you'll see the little the Jews wear the little black cube on their head. So just bizarre in general. I just think it's very weird, because I question everything, especially religion, and I've never had like a devotion to any particular ideology, because I feel like it can taint you. It can you know what I mean? Like it can put you in a box, and then you can't escape from that box. Speaking of cubes.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I'm like, what you just said there, it puts you in a box where you cannot get out. And if you look at the box in the sense of like, yeah, that's in Mecca. And then if you look at the box and where you kind of fit and you can't make it out of the box, we're talking about like the Matrix. So Saturn's energy is to keep you engaged within the earthly, I guess, reality, rather than seeing yourself as a soul in a human body who can escape that box. And then if you open the box, what do you get? You get the cross. So
it is crazy, and it has to do with like some of the, you could say, the reptilian aspects of things, is they are obsessed with essentially pleasure and the physical pleasures of this reality. Hence why they try to keep so many people locked into it, and all of us fall victim to it. And it's the same thing with like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn that we're showing right now, or with Alex Crowley and the sex magic, and then the Masonic floors with all these black cubes on the floors, and then obviously the Jewish star of Remphan, which it actually is. Nowhere in the Bible or the Talmud is referenced as the Star of David. However, the Bible does reference this as the Star of Remphan, belonging to Moloch and Satan. And I do think that is the case, and that a lot of, especially Jewish people that are not in the know, don't really realize how much this connects to like actual like Satanism and the darker aspects of occult magic.
Well, I don't think a lot of people understand that, like, a lot of the religions all have the same connection, because you showed the Pope right there in the last picture. Do you know what I mean with the star as well?
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize that all of the symbolism is, everyone is kind of, how should I say this? Worshiping the same God with different names, with different doctrines and different kind of explanations in the sense of the way. And I keep telling people, if we just combine all of that information, we could actually find a way out of the box or matrix, and people would actually realize what the truth is. And somehow everything has a connection back to Saturn, and then back to ancient Egypt and all of the other antiquity religions, and like the Hermetic orders, the secret societies, and it all has that same connection, which is Saturn, which is super interesting.
And it does seem like all these religious, we'll get into it, but like there's so many different gods throughout, like all these different folklores that all connect to the exact same thing. It's this is this is this. It's all like, even though they're separate in the way people worship them, it's all the same thing, right? Like
exactly. I don't think people realize that astrotheology is actually religion with different names, and trying to explain the movement of planets and so forth in ways of stories. So it's a metaphorical way of describing what is happening in the outer planets. That's one thing that a lot of people seem to miss. Because I know I watched a documentary, and it's basically, you've got like the resurrection, the 3 days, Easter, you have the solstice, and everything is being kind of taught in a form of humans, I guess, in character form, not realizing that you're actually describing the movement of the planets and how the sun rises and moves around us, and the cyclical nature of things is basically put into personification of religions and other theologies. So
yeah,
I don't know.
it seems to all connect, and that's why I just, I have my own beliefs and stuff like that, and the only things I celebrate, like, I had a dude on that thinks that Trump is the Antichrist, and he's very Christian, and he's like, don't worship or don't celebrate Halloween, it's evil, it's I'm like, the kids have nothing to look forward to. It is a way for them to dress up and like kind of just have fun, and yeah, parade us things that like, and just kind of have fun, and like you can. I don't think it's evil in the way. I think, sure, they probably do some evil sacrifice stuff. I think they do it all the time. But this is, I view it as something that's for kids, and to kind of like be able to play pretend and try to enjoy this reality that is very dark. So to make light of that darkness, I think, is not a bad thing.
You know what's really interesting is actually Halloween goes back to Irish traditions, where they said that this is the time of the year where the veil is the thinnest between this world and the other world. And the reason why people used to wear costumes, like scary costumes, is so that when the veil is the thinnest and the ghosts come into this reality, the ghosts will not know who is who. So it was a way of protection to wear a costume. So it's really weird how like one thing has started with something good and then turned into something completely different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that they use this, especially like Christians and Catholics, and who all of them do. They use these like things and be like, this is evil because of this, even though all their religions are based in pagan traditions and rituals. And all that. And like some of it, I'm sure is bad, and they did some horrible things, but I'm sure some of it was good, and also just for seeking knowledge, right?
Exactly.
So Saturn is, and probably the most important figure behind the development of the mystery Babylon. Interesting enough, Saturn was known as the god of the hidden counsels, concealer of secrets, and a god of mysteries. In fact, the major subtitles of this god was the hidden one and the hidden god. Now that this mysterious god, why did he have to be hidden? Many esoteric researchers affirm that the name Israel is the combination of the ancient pagan deities Isis, Ra, and El. Israel. Pretty interesting, and you can kind of like see it here.
You know what's really weird is the Catholic Church also has like the IHC, I think, or IHS symbol in all of their churches, and it means Isis, like Set. I can't remember what the other one is, but every single like religion almost has a connection to these gods who were in ancient Egypt, which is super interesting. And that's the dog. This is what I apologize.
That's
yeah, easy. Yeah, he literally is special.
My dog is the exact same way. I call him autistic, but
oh, yeah, this one definitely is.
So let's get into this. The Greeks and the Romans are also worshipped Saturn as a cruel deity. Here is a brief summary of the mythology of Saturn in the Western world. With deposing of his father, Saturn became the ruler of the universe for untold ages, and he reigned with his sister Ops, who also became his wife. That's fun. He was also prophesied that one day Saturn would lose power when one of his children would depose him. To prevent this from happening, each time Ops delivered a child, Saturn would immediately swallow it. When her sixth child, Jupiter, Zeus, was born, Ops, I don't know how you pronounce the name, it's OPS, had him spirited away to the island of Crete. She then wrapped a stone in swollen clothes. Her deception was complete when Saturn swallowed it, thinking it was a child. And when Jupiter was grown, he secured the job of cub bearing to his father with the help of Gaia, his grandmother. Jupiter fed his father a potion that caused him to vomit up Jupiter's 5 siblings: Vesta, Creus, Juno, Pluto, and Neptune, all like Poseidon, Hades, like different names for all these different gods, right?
Exactly.
It's fascinating stuff, man. Saturn has always had a negative, if not evil, significance in ancient times. It has been called the greater malefic, which is opposed to Jupiter, the greater benefic. Saturn is esoterically also associated with man's limitations, as we kind of mentioned, restrictions on death and decay. His Greek name was Kronos with a K, the ruler of time. And then there's Kronos with the CH also. Essentially, that inevitably that will die, right? And that's why we have some of these connections to time. Traditionally, it represents the Grim Reaper. And this is also the idea of like we see the god of Saturn with the sickle, with which he slain his father. And then throughout history, Saturn often carries negative connotation that has been associated with concepts like death and decay. These associations eventually led to the concept with being connected to Satan, the embodiment of evil. Many believe that the word Satan is derived from Saturn due to the similar characteristics and symbolism. An important association between Saturn and Satan revolves around the color black. Both Saturn and the color black are commonly associated with evil and darkness, further reinforcing this connection. In ancient pagan religions, Saturn was also depicted as the Greek god Pan, a half-human, half-goat being. Pan is considered to be the ancestor of our modern depictions of Satan, and this association reinforces the link between Saturn and Satan. Pretty interesting, if that is true.
That's interesting because Saturn is also the ruling planet for Capricorn and Aquarius. And right now we're going into the age of Aquarius. And it's also,
I think we're going into interesting times.
Oh, we are definitely going into interesting times. And what's also interesting is Saturn is the 6th planet from the sun. And so if you look at the numerology, exactly. Yeah. If you look at the numerology, it's super interesting how many of, I guess, these like links between what Saturn has and what we're seeing today. And also, I think the alignment of certain planets will set off certain prophecies that are written in certain religious books, which a lot of people don't understand. And I kind of understand the whole like, oh, do not look into the stars. And, if you research things, comes from a basis of fear in religion where they tell you, hey, don't research this, don't
Yeah.
research that, just follow like the one path to where you're supposed to go to. Because if you do that, then you get trapped in this soul like trap planet, which everyone's calling a prison planet, so that you keep doing the same loop over and over again until something inside of you wakes up. But the more times you come back, the more you actually forget because your memory gets wiped each time. And so that's why you have reincarnation and you have like, the whole 3 days of resurrection and things like that, which is super interesting as well if you look at the Saturn and those connections.
Well, I feel like, yeah, people are definitely getting trapped in, and like I said, in that religious doctrine of it. I don't think the Bible is the end all be all of knowledge. And there's a lot of people that do and think that everything is referenced back to the Bible. And it's just a book that was written from ancient knowledge and text and then changed stories and whatever. And I've always thought that it is just stories that have been recycled throughout history. And they could have played out in some of the ways that they're describing. But I think it's about looking through it and understanding the symbology of all of these ancient texts and then connecting everything to try to find the truth. Because there's a lot of people within the truther community that are Christians or Catholics or whatever, even Muslims to some extent, and they just believe that their thing is right and they have to follow that. And I'm like, no, I don't think you're correct, man.
I think it just comes out of fear, right? Because a lot of people are afraid of dying, which I find super
Yes.
interesting. You know what I mean? And so to them, it comforts them knowing that if they do certain things, there will be life after death. And I think that is the main deterrent for people with like who are super religious from going out and researching more things, because in their minds they don't trust themselves and they think, what if I get it wrong? And then
Yeah.
the afterlife is all about suffering, and they don't want that. And so most of the things that they say just comes out of fear of death and not knowing what the afterlife is. And if they only realize, if they opened up their knowledge and their sense of self to other information, they would realize that it's not actually as scary as they think, and that you can transition in a much better way without having to be completely indoctrinated into one story versus the other.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I'm going to go where I'm supposed to go. Like, I think that a lot of life is like predetermined and I'm not going to be afraid. I'm going to try to be the best version of myself possible. Sure, I think that there'll be consequences for some people, especially the people in power. But according to some, even the stuff that the Law of One teaches is the idea that they will be cleansed at some point, that they'll go through like learning lessons to become a soul that well, the ability to become good, because we all have good and evil in us. And I think that you could like maybe go on to a next life and have to reincarnate until you learn certain lessons. I think that's possible. But at the end of the day, nobody's going to know until we're dead.
I guess
So
that's true too.
the worship of Saturn and the symbolism can be found in various religions. For instance, obviously, Islam's make a pilgrimage to the Kaaba in Mecca, a black cube shaped building representing the rings of Saturn, and they all march around it. It's so weird, man. Like I don't understand it. Like, and they're just marching around the cube, and it's connected to all. They're looking out, and like probably I'm sure millions of people on that. I can't remember what day it is, and they all march around it in counterclockwise, I think, and that devotion and faith to go kiss it. And I don't understand that. Like, it's same with the Western Wall of having the Wailing Wall, having them kissing it, and everybody that thinks Trump is going to save them that's embarrassing.
Yeah, you know what's really also weird is like in the Mecca, like in that cube, there is something that everybody touches, but apparently only males are supposed to touch it, and it's a
Yeah.
stone, and that stone apparently is super white and came from, I guess, I don't know, space, they're saying, landed in Mecca, and then they made the black cube on top of it, and no one can see inside.
See, that's weird. I have no like, and this is why I think it connects to some of the more darker aspects of maybe the reptilian type thing or whatever. It is weird, right? Because they don't want depictions of Muhammad but Muhammad had an orange beard, man. So I'm like, was he a white guy or something? Because there's a lot of weird things that's maybe why they don't want him depicted, because there is actually a sect, like I would say more of a cult of Islam, and they all dye their beards orange because they want to look like Muhammad. And Muhammad depictions of him, supposedly he did have, I think, an orange beard and an orange hair, but at least I know they had an orange beard, which is weird.
You know what's interesting is there's certain regions in like, I'm not really sure if it's around Kazakhstan or I can't remember now, but people actually have I guess the gene for red hair and lighter eyes.
Yeah,
So I'm wondering if he's from that area. Like, they're still in the Middle East, but like I really cannot remember right now. Like, I'm drawing a blank. But there are actually people who have orange hair and lighter eyes, and but they're not like considered like white. You know what I mean?
Well, it's weird because Iran, where they get the name from is Aryan, and I didn't know that.
Yeah,
but that's weird.
Yeah, Iran is actually Aryan, and they're the first ones to actually have a university as well. And so that's what I found really interesting in World War II, where they're like, oh, Aryan means the white race. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. It means Iranian in ancient times, if you actually like go back. So either like little mustache dude was stupid when he was looking at this knowledge and completely like misinterpreted everything. And then that word got misinterpreted, just like the same symbol, you know, with the swastika was misinterpreted from Buddhism time. And now it's seen as an evil image. You know what I mean? But like the way it started was not absolutely how it was used in World War II.
I'm gonna send you some. Jake Shields had you know who Ken O'Keefe is? He's an interesting dude. He's a dude that like he looks at history. He's an ex-Marine, but he looks at history in a different lens of what we were taught and how we were kind of there's a lot of things that are missing and people don't look into. But I'm going to send you an episode whenever you're bored. And Jake Shield was a fighter, and he's trying to expose a lot of the stuff that's going on with Israel and all that stuff. And he had Ken O'Keefe on, which is Ken O'Keefe is like a ex-Marine historian. He helped produce I think he just talked within it with the documentary Europa: The Last Battle. So I want to say, out of curiosity, just to see what you think, because it's pretty interesting to see a different version and hear them just openly speak about some things that we're not allowed to talk about.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd love to see it. Send it to me for sure.
It's interesting. I sent it to everybody because I do find it pretty interesting. I some people like Ken O'Keefe, some people like think maybe, but like I think he's a good guy, at least trying to show people a different version of what we've been told. So obviously you have the Kaaba in Mecca, a black cube, and even in Judaism, the Telphanin, a small, I don't know that's how you pronounce it, but the small black leather boxes were on the forehead, symbolizes Saturn's influence on time and mortality. And it's just funny. Then they do that worshiping of they put their bad karma into the chicken and then kill it. So many weird things that Jews do. I'm not gonna lie. It's very weird. I don't understand.
It goes back to like the Kabbalah, but the Kabbalah with a K, which is like esoteric knowledge, which a lot of the New Age and Christian and I should say pagan, I guess things come from, and it actually comes from the Kabbalah, the esoteric knowledge that is written within that, which is like actually ancient things. Well, goes back to ancient religions, doesn't actually translate into Judaism that we know today. And then the Abrahamic religions kind of split up and branched out in their own directions. But everything kind of comes back to the esoteric knowledge that was passed down before we went from multiple gods to just one God, which started way, way back. And that's another thing that I don't understand. What?
Everything got hijacked, though, right? And I truly believe that all religions are going down the wrong path, in my opinion. Some are more righteous than others of what they're trying to achieve, but you guys all fighting each other is just not going to help the humanity in any way. And everyone thinking that they're right. I'm right. No, I'm right. No, I'm right. Let's kill each other. Like, it's been happening for thousands of years. You guys going to keep doing it?
That's another thing that I ask people. I'm like, okay, so when God went to Babylon, right, and then like dissipated, put everybody in different corners of the earth, made us all learn different languages so that we couldn't understand each other and communicate with each other. Then we have a branching of all of these religions that want to dominate like the earth in the sense of, oh, we're like the only ones, the dog, and all of that stuff. Then literally that's where I think a lot of people need to realize, like, why would a god, you know, dissipate people so that we don't understand each other, so that we can't communicate with each other, and then also punish us, I guess, for not understanding each other,
That's
instead
why
of
that's
all
not
of
a
us
god to
coming
me.
and uniting, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's not my God. And that's why I'm like, I've had talks with people, especially that Christian, like, oh, you won't go into heaven because of this or that. And I'm like, I don't believe in your fairy tales. I'm sorry, but I don't believe that your knowledge is the end all be all. And I don't believe in that aspect of the fairy tale that you tell yourself is accurate just because you read one book or because you've been convinced of so, right? Like, I think questioning everything is a good practice. Because
Well,
even,
what's
yeah, keep
even
going.
interesting, you said one book, but they've taken out so many different books in
The book of
Christianity.
Enoch, and yeah.
Yeah, Book of Enoch, Book of John, the secret book of John. Then you have a book that pretty much tries to state that God was a woman, and that from her something split, and then the male part of her made Earth, which is why it's so male dominated,
Yeah.
in the sense of religions, because I never understood why, you know, God would make females and as a female, and then just tell me that my entire purpose on this earth is to bow down to men and have children. Like, in my mind, like, that doesn't make sense. And I'm like, not trying to diss all men, but like, I work with dudes, you know what I mean? Like, all guys. And in my head, I'm like, I wouldn't even trust you to like babysit my dogs. You know what I mean?
I know. Well,
But
that's where you see
like,
that there is a
what?
difference between femininity and masculinity, is that they're supposed to balance each other out, right? Men are not always the most intelligent in the way they deal with their emotions or like anger and all that stuff, and females are kind of supposed to balance that out, right? And men are supposed to fight and protect. And I do believe that to some aspect, and I do think that in our society, the balance is not there anymore. There's places now, especially in politics, that are too feminized. You know, Trudeau is
Absolutely.
technically like a woman. He just his
Yes.
dick stuck between his legs. Even Pierre, all these politicians are very, especially the men, have become these weak little like nerd, like, you know, like everyone thinks someone's gonna save them. Pierre's been writing essays since he was 22 about, I'm gonna be prime minister when I'm prime minister, and he's just some nerd that just has done really nothing to help the Canadian people, but then it talks to you and you're just like, oh yeah, sure, he's telling me what I want to hear, so I believe him. And Trump's the same thing. Even he said he's gonna execute anybody that's an anti-Semite and shit like that. And I'm like, you people do not understand where you're going in the future if this guy does what he says he's going to do for Israel and stuff. So
You know what's really like interesting as well with like the whole female male balance thing is women have like that feminine intuition, right? And
yeah.
then a lot of ancient and esoteric knowledge is telling you that you can gain knowledge through like hair and long hair. But yet every single religion, if you go back to orthodoxy of that religion, is telling women to cover their hair. And they're saying it's because of sexuality. What dude looks at hair and he's like, oh yeah, there it is, I saw
Something to grab
hair.
on. I could fuck that.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like what on earth is like happening? If you actually look at Native American and a lot of the Native and pagan rituals and like teachings and things like that, that makes a lot more sense than how they have perverted almost every religion to make it seem like, oh, women are less, men are more. And I'm wondering, why would you do that when women have that internal instinct of being able to tell who's good and who's bad and who this,
there is it. You guys have intuition, and that's why I really am excited to produce this show, even if we can just do it once a month, is because we can have that balance, right? Because I'm active on becoming the best version, stronger. I'm going to the gym, reading more, trying to use psychedelics to like help my mental health. It's been a while, so, and I get fed into all this stuff, right? Like I do like some of the dudes from Diagolon and stuff of what they're trying to like, hey, we have to stand up for our country and stuff like that. And I see Canada being eroded, but there is the other side of how even my wife is, where she was like, she's very compassionate and she's seeing me lose my compassion for some of the things that are happening. And like, I see like there was a big yard sale not long ago, and then there's like a Muslim family that was there, and all the women, even the children, were like wearing burqas where you couldn't even see their eyes, and that shit disturbs me. It's weird. I don't like it, and I'm people can call me a bigot or whatever, but because I don't understand it, and I've looked into Islam. I've actually read parts of the Quran when I was like 16, because a lot of the rappers I listened to were talking about it and stuff, and I just don't get it, and especially the thing of possessing women in that way, and you're just a child bearer and you need to cover yourself and you have no right to think or speak or even eat the food that you want. I have a problem with that.
Oh, I do as well. And if you actually look in Iran before the Iranian Revolution,
Yes,
Muslim women were not covered up. In Bosnia, like former Yugoslavia, we had Orthodox Christians, Muslims, you know what I mean, Catholics,
yeah,
and nobody. And when I say nobody covered up, everybody went and drank alcohol. Do you know what I mean? Like women and men. Like it wasn't to that extent. And then something happened where a small radicalization, exactly, and that's where the whole burqa and the whole covering thing
that came. I think that's used in. I think it's used by Israel. I think that Islam is the broom of Israel. I do believe that is the case. That they're used to like destroy things and sweep things under the rug. And there's a possibility that they're the ones that have radicalized Islam and used it, because supposedly there was essentially people, the people that were in control and the British government and stuff like that, they're actually not colonizing these areas, but like influencing some of these areas like Iran and stuff. We're actually pushing to progress them quotations into like a more progressive, where women and men can kind of get along and all that stuff. And then supposedly there was people like, no, we need to use them against each other, and we can use them to cover up some of our misdeeds, stuff that they were doing that was evil, and use them to kind of brush everything and focus it on an enemy. Look at these people, they're bad, they look different, they abuse women, and they used it against themselves.
See, I actually think a lot of people I know you like to blame like Jewish people on a lot of things, because like you get to a certain level where it seems
It
like
looks
that.
weird.
But you got to look to see who is controlling Israel. And if you find that, you're going to find the England and the monarchy, and then behind them you're going to find the Vatican.
Oh yeah,
so
I truly believe that too.
Yeah, so I
do
find
think
it really interesting that a lot of people like point fingers, you know what I mean? And they're like, oh, it's all Israel, it's all this. If it's out in the open, it is not them. There's got to be 3 more steps behind there.
Oh, for sure.
Like, people who are actually, because if you look at the Committee of 300, you won't just see like one religion on there.
No.
You will see all 3, including the Muslim Brotherhood. So, you know what I mean? If they're the ones all sitting around this table telling us that we should fight amongst each other, but they're all sitting at the same table, like, you know, the Muslims, the Christians, the Jewish people, like they're all sitting at the same table. So who is really the enemy here, right? Like that's the one thing where it goes back to the whole blaming, just like the people blame each other in religious things. So yeah.
I have found some of those. I have to send to you something, but I have found some of those verses in the Talmud that are pretty disturbing and stuff like that. And what I think is that obviously there's always something that's like someone above that. But the problem I have is if you look, who's responsible for mass immigration, everyone is the Jays. If you look in Pfizer, everyone that controls Pfizer is a J. Almost everyone is a J. People that dual citizenship with Israel and Congress in the United States is a J. Like it all connects at least. And then I think that those people, a lot of them aren't even religious. What's the guy that started Zionism? Theodor Herzl. He said he was an atheist, and then he was like, but we're doing this because God told me to. So like they contradict themselves all the time.
But before World War I, who made Israel? Like who signed so that would be a country? That's
the
what
Rothschilds.
No. It was no, it wasn't. It was England.
Yeah, but there's people that point that the whole this could be a topic for another day, but the British Empire is controlled by the U's. That's what people would say, because this is with a Y with the yes. Because if you look into the stuff, like even the Queen and the royal family was originally from Germany, and then they changed to like they were English all of a sudden, and like so everyone's being controlled by the same hidden hand. And I think that each religion is being used against each other. But I've looked in some of those verses in the Talmud, and they're there. So I'm always like, if you do believe in the Talmud, I do consider that they're evil, because some of that stuff is like really disgusting.
Okay, so then, okay, if you look at, okay, okay, we can definitely go into another one, but Zoroaster and
Yeah.
the reason why Judaism split in the
Mhm.
past is if you look into Zoroaster and what they said that the people initially were worshiping was so far beyond disgusting that an Orthodox priest went separate and said, what these guys are teaching you is not Judaism, it's not
Yeah, I
anything to
agree.
do, it's evil. And so he went and started Judaism, but that branch, that initial branch for the king that was let go by the Zoroasters, that is the hand that's playing. But in your hand, how many fingers are there? There's
Yeah.
5, right?
Mhm.
So you kind of have to, I guess, go a little bit deeper. I know a lot of people like to blame the Jays for absolutely
Yeah.
everything, but that is kind of like the scapegoat for everybody. But that scapegoat also has a bunch of other things that are playing in the background. And the reason why I don't go into that is
Mhm.
because you put more hate out there for people to then just point fingers instead of getting to the actual truth of who is controlling everything
Yeah,
in
for
the
sure. But
background. You know
we
what I
should
mean?
acknowledge that they like there are certain people that have like is like that are part of the Jewish religion that have stated that they want to eradicate Europeans, and the Samson option. If Israel is threatened, they will literally nuke the entire world, and they've said this, that if their existence is threatened, then they will let off as many nukes as possible to destroy the world.
Dude, I totally get that, but that's just to rile people up. You know what I mean? Like
I
you've
agree.
got,
It's scary
yeah,
though.
you've
Like
got,
if they're gonna
yeah.
do that.
It's not gonna happen. Like you've got
Yeah.
a lot of fundamentalists on all sides who absolutely 100% would, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah.
But right now, what they're trying to say is, oh, hey, if we point fingers at this group, right, then
Mhm.
everybody will turn around and not even look at the truth and who's actually controlling and puppeteering the thing. Then
The
you've
reptilians.
just gotten then you've only gone to a certain level of awakening, you
I
know what I
agree.
mean, and finding out the truth. And that's why I kind of go, oh, okay, well, let's put everybody on the same like thing and then see who's behind it. That's kind of
Yeah.
what I do. But
No, I
yeah.
agree, and that's why I like having these talks with you. Is that we both we essentially meet in the middle. We may see things on different sides a little different, but we still agree on the main core of what we should be looking for and trying to figure out is actually find the truth, right? There's people in the
Exactly.
chat saying exactly, and I agree. So let's get back into this. Saturn, as we said, has also been associated with Satan for numerous reasons. Many authors argue that the word Satan derives from the word Saturn. Second, Saturn is associated with the color black, as we said. Third is ancients considered Saturn to be the farthest planet from the sun, the latter, being associated with the principle of good. Note that Pluto was never considered a planet. Saturn is consequently the celestial body that is the less. Exposed to the sun, divines light, and thus associates with coldness. It's farthest away, right? Principle of evil. Finally, we talked about the god Pan, and being connected to Pan was composed of a creature with the upper of a human and the goat with horns, and then even you have Manly P. Hall talking about these depictions of the horns due to the representation of Saturn, the ruler of the house of Capricorn, which is a goat. Pan was the controlling spirit of the lower worlds. He was portrayed roaming through the forest, penis erect, drunk, and I get really horny, frolicking with nymphs and piping his way through the wild. We might say that he ruled the lower nature of man and its natural side, not unlike Satan. Despite acknowledging the association with evil, secret societies find that the veneration of Saturn necessary to obtain illumination. It is necessary for the counterpart of the principle of good. Masonic authors clearly associate Saturn with Satan. Saturn is the opposite to Jupiter. His symbol is the cross above the sign of Luna. He is Satan, the temperer, the tester. His function is to chastise and tame the unruly passions with the primitive man, and that's no Freemason. Evil principles of these fraternities of Saturn and the occult organization is based in Germany and openly embodies the hidden side of Saturn worship. And And then it goes in the aspect of like these sex magics and the sexual aspects of the lodge work, or is some of the like it's even goes even darker and even satanic in the understandable and the light of it. So if you have the light, there is the dark, obviously also, and that's why you see a lot of the things of what they're doing to like unalive people and come after them, because the opposite of life is death. So, and they worship death in some regard, I think. But you see this of them, and it's the idea of like connecting too much, which as a male I've definitely done in my life, connecting too much to your like was the red chakra or whatever, more of like the sexualized chakra, and that's what all your energy is coming from, and then that's not good too, because it takes hold of the rest of your chakras or your brain, right? Like,
Exactly, because all of your energy then flows downwards instead of upwards, right? Because the crown, your head, is like the last chakra that's supposed to open up. And so if you focus on your red chakra, which is like the sexual organs, all of that energy flows downwards, not allowing you to think clearly or kind of engage in life in a more enlightened way as well. And so if we look at Saturn with like the 7 rings, as I said, it's like the 7 chakras. And then if you look at how long it takes for Saturn to orbit the sun once, it's generational, which is why most of these like elite or delete parasites have generational plans, because they go based on Saturn's movement around the Earth. Because when certain things align and planet wise, certain prophecies open up and certain channels of energy open up, allowing them to actually fulfill their generational plans. That's another thing.
and I think like maybe not now as much, but women used to be more thought out, right? They're not looking for a partner based just on looks. They're also looking for intelligence and are they going to protect me and all that stuff. Where men often, this is true, often go for appearance first and then figure out that maybe she's crazy or something, right? So like, and men I feel like are definitely more ruled from that chakra, because ours is like on the outside, it just, things just happen, you know what I mean? So like you're just erect and all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, you know. So like, and people get ruled by that. Now we have the society that has been very subverted into like focusing mostly on those physical pleasures, you know.
Exactly. And I think it's a lot easier to turn men on to the physical aspect, as you said, because men are more visual, and then keep them in that lower chakra with Saturn, just because then they cannot move to a higher being of listening to their gut feelings like
Yeah.
most women are. And then you get that differentiation. And then it's super easy to control the populace, especially if you have one gender that you can absolutely control, especially through like corn, you know what I mean? Not actual
Yeah.
corn.
Yeah.
Corn and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then kind of dilute society and the moral, I guess, foundation that people have set in other
100%.
certain religious books.
And you see the cube everywhere. Australia, Denmark, Manhattan. Like you see this everywhere. Even the apple, which is already the forbidden fruit, forbidden knowledge. They have a giant cube. These cubes are everywhere. Even the Twin Towers. It's an inverted cube now of where the Twin Towers were. They made this monument, and it's an inverted cube into the ground. All this does, I think, play a part. It's in Hellraiser. It's everywhere. You like, and you have it in Transformers. If you listen to the beginning talk, all movies, and you have it. That's why I'm saying this is, it could go pretty deep, and you know, could be multiple episodes if we chose to do it. But there is a lot of stuff, and then connected to, you know, like worshiping Baal and some of these more demonic entities, and using child sacrifice, and Moloch is connected to it also. You know, it's crazy. And so even this is interesting. So Elohim appears 2,500 times in the Old Testament, but is falsely translated in most versions. The fact of it, it means it's plural. Explains why the Genesis gods said to let us make man in our own image. It was gods, not God. So like, and that's true. Like I truly believe that it's been misinterpreted. As stated, Elohim refers to gods or goddesses, as its singular form El serves as the prefix or suffix in the names of gods, people, and places. Whence Emmanuel, Gabriel, Bethel, even when Satan was one of the Elohim. This is from The Christ Conspiracy, the greatest story ever sold. Semitic civilizations refer to the god as El, who is the supreme deity and represents the black cube. This is why today when you get married before God. And the symbol of God is the ring, is one that puts it on each other's fingers. The ring of Saturn in the marriage phrases of one also begins to do with what we have to do with Saturn. This is from Jordan Maxwell. He's pretty in tune to this stuff. In astrology, Saturn and Satan is the cult of El. I actually have an episode if we ever want to dive into that. I'm pretty sure I read an episode about the cult of El. It's interesting. And David, I'm reading his book right now, and he talks about this kind of stuff. Each day of the week has its own meaning and significance. For the most obvious day is Sunday, that many people worship the sun god. Saturday, which is associated with Saturn worship. The Roman name Saturday, Saturni, Saturn's day, no later than the 2nd century for the planet Saturn, which controls the first hour of the day. For Jews and the Messianic and the 7th day Adventists, the 7th day of the week known as Sabbath, stretches from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday and the rest of this day. So you have all these connections. And then Pan, again, is a big point to this stuff. It's really, there's some weird stuff, because then you have like the New World Order, Nova Order Secarum, or I can't even pronounce that right now. It's too early. But then when people flip a coin, they will ask heads or tails. If the Pan is the god of Saturn, then why would this phrase, the man of the head and the tail of a goat? I never knew that. That's really weird.
That's actually interesting. I've never heard that either. Because now I'm wondering, you said cube, and then you showed a picture of like some light coming out of a cube. I'm wondering, what if the cube on top of Saturn is actually a portal where energy is released, and CERN, being a ring, is what they're trying to mimic on Earth to harness the energy that Saturn gives without going through that entire cycle and waiting for planets to be aligned in order for them to prophetically, put their plans forward.
Yeah, someone in the chat's like, too early, need a coffee. This is making my brain hurt. Can we get the cute doggy back?
I'm like, which one? I've got 3 of them. I'm like,
yeah, so this might take us, if you're down, maybe 15, 20 more minutes to cover the rest of this, because I want to cover this correctly, so maybe we don't have to do this again, because it is a big subject, and all the, it's weird, even, you have the Star of David, Star of Remphan, and then to end it on, I have something interesting that you'll find, and it's all in movies. Like, I could bring up more and more images. It's in like there's the Saturn car. There's all these like companies that use Saturn. There's Nike with the swoop that represents Saturn. It is like, once you start to look at it, it is pretty crazy. And then obviously Saturday is the name after Saturn. The 6th planet is the 6th day of the week, and the 6-sided pentagon, and on the North Pole, 666. It represents the hexagram cube of the 6-sided star. It's very, like, there's 666 is like everywhere. That's what people do point to it. It's in like buildings. I think it's in Congress. There's so many places where they have these weird little cubes. It's very weird. So some of these things, like Pan is the god of Saturn. Saturn is those truly, who are they giving energy to? We unknowingly see and use these symbols of Saturn in our everyday lives. First, you pay your tuition to get into a university, right? Where they strip you of your intuition and give you an indoctrination. Then you receive mass stars, Masonic degree, while wearing a Masonic mortar cap. The cap even. That's funny.
He's hilarious. Literally, I can't control this dog.
And they point to this too, that when you graduate, you're wearing this like black cube cat. Which is really weird. The cult of Saturn black robes that become the alumni. Graduation means to weird. It means to increment or retard the process. So as Jordan Maxwell says, the true meaning of graduation is gradual indoctrination. Stick a bunch of 5-year-olds in a room of 5-year-olds for a year, then a bunch of 6-year-olds with 6-year-olds, and so on for 20 years until you're so indoctrinated that you give that eventually you just repeat this indoctrination that you've been. And they they've said this, right, when they took over the education system, right, is how long will it take us to indoctrinate, like after, I think it's 4 years they'll be able to read, write, all that stuff. So they're like, what are we going to teach them? Everything about nothing. And then they learn that it will take about, I think they said 12 years for them to fully indoctrinate people beyond them questioning like anything. And you see this too, because the Soviet Union did this too. They the KGB were doing experiments of how long it would take to brainwash people.
Yeah, and it's actually a generation, which is interesting. It takes a generation for Saturn to circle the sun.
Yeah, that's crazy. Our education systems will never teach us the true meaning of Saturn because our culture has been hijacked in order for us to unknowingly give our collective energy to Saturn. In modern times, these are still remnants of Saturn worship. And if anyone's wondering what's going on in the audio, the dog is going buck wild. It's also the symbolism that can be found in different aspects of society. While some of these connections may seem far-fetched or conspiratorial, they have captured the imagination of many. One of the interesting theories suggests that many of the U.S. presidents are directly related to King John of England, implying the bloodline connection that has allowed a secret group known as the Cult of Saturn to maintain control of society. I do have an episode that we can eventually do about the Cult of Saturn if you want. The theory suggests I can send you the whole thing and maybe we can just break it down together and go kind of through it because it's pretty interesting. I copy and pasted that. I just read things after. I find all these like sites that normal people could not find through like things like Brave and DuckDuckGo is really trying to dig for some of these sites. I found a really good one. I don't want to give away my sources, but it's a good site. I can send you it. There's tons of interesting articles. I think that's where I got this one from. This theory suggests that the cult ensures its own members hold positions of power and influence, enabling them to control the world behind the scenes. Another intriguing connection is that the link between Prince Charles and Vlad the Impaler. And me and my buddy Billy just covered Vlad the Impaler and kind of touched upon this stuff. The ruler of Romania. Some believe that Prince Charles and the descendant of Vlad the Impaler, adding to the idea that the powerful individuals have connections with these ancient astral lines. And it makes sense because he even bought the castle. Wherever he's doing there, like, it's walking around in the dark and so, I don't know. It's so weird. He bought like Vlad the Impaler's castle, which is I'm sure would be pretty fun to hang out in though.
Throw some parties, which include baby oil, probably.
Yeah. I know. It's so true. Sticking stakes up people's asses and stuff, and all sorts of fun stuff. Obviously, in the Saturn's distance from the sun holds significant for those who worship it. It is believed to represent separation from divine light and the association with darkness and evil. Hence, why many secret societies and occult groups have used this symbolism in their practices. The black cube is another mysterious symbol that associated with Saturn, found in various cultures and religions, including Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. It represents the influence on time, mortality, as we said. Also, the all-seeing eye with the secret societies in modern society is used. It's a prevalent symbol. You see it all over, and it's the symbol of constant surveillance and control, harking back to the idea the cult of Saturn has been influencing this world for a very long time. It's crazy. And then obviously you have the connection to the cult of El and their supreme deity, so Saturn worship in society. Saturn worship is symbolized and has a profound impact on society. It has been incorporated into pop culture and corporate brandings in various ways. A notable example of Saturn's symbol is in the popular culture is found in Lord of the Rings series. The character Sauron of the Eye, right? Who seeks to rule Middle Earth, which is obviously associated with where we are, probably in our reality, right? I think he knew some stuff. J.R. Tolkien, I think he knew some stuff. I think he was involved with some cults and stuff. I think
100%. He even said that he read the red book that tells you the truth of everything and where all of the religions came from. He said that there is a red velvet kind of book, and in that book, and that is where he kind of came up with all of the ideas to show us what he read in that book through metaphorical ways.
I would love to cover some of that stuff. Like even at some point, we cover like symbolism throughout movies and stuff like that, and the connections. I'm sure like if we dug deep enough, we could easily do an hour on
Oh yeah.
Lord of the Rings, right? So, and you see this obviously with he seeks to rule Middle Earth, often associated with Saturn worship. The One Ring, which Sauron uses to control others. Interesting, can be seen as a representation of Saturn influence over time and power. Corporate logos often pay tribute. For instance, the Nike logo with the iconic swoosh symbolism is interpreted as a representation of Saturn's rings. Similar with the circle with the horizontal lines, and the Nissan logo represents the Saturn symbol. The cross, where, like you said, when you open up a cube, it becomes a cross. Christianity is also connected with Saturn worship. When you unfold the cross, it forms a cube, or when it's unfolded. It's crazy. So Saturn worship has contributed to social division by promoting conflict. Symbolism in worship has been used to manipulate and control people by creating division based on beliefs and ideologies. The division serves the mysterious groups known as the Cult of Saturn, which aims to subjugate humanity and redirect our energy towards Saturn. There are claims that Charles Darwin, the father of the theory of evolution, was involved with Saturn worship. These claims suggest that his theories are a part of a larger plan by the Cult of Saturn to fuel modern atheist movements. And it's important to note that the empirical research and scientific evidence have been supported by Darwin's evolutionary theories. That is interesting. I'm sure he was involved in some shady shit.
Honestly, anyone that became famous in the sense of the way where like mainstream news media pushes them, I'm like definitely paid part of like some kind of cult to push and propagate certain information out there, like 100%.
100%.
And Darwin was definitely one of them. You don't make the history books if you actually do something for humanity, kind of like Nikola Tesla, where they just wanted to like forget about him and then people keep him alive. Not textbooks, not history.
Yeah.
Everybody goes to Edison, and that's because they don't really want the truth being told.
Edison was a piece of shit.
Oh, 100%.
and unfortunately, so was why can't I think of his name? His fucking goofy hair. Relativity theory.
Einstein.
Einstein stole all of his shit. He literally stole all of his stuff.
Like, look at Bill Gates. The guy is known as everything. He did not invent anything. He stole everything and then just kind of knew how to market it to a bigger crowd.
Yeah, I can't remember the guy's name, but Einstein stole all of his stuff from some German dude and then claimed that he found it. And like all of his research, he just literally thieved from somebody else. And it's
100%.
So obviously they want to control a collective power and harness it for their own purpose. Certain organizations are doing this to keep attention on Saturn worship by incorporating Babylonian beliefs into the beliefs of the general public. And I feel like that's where you do see like some of the stuff with Baphomet and Satanism and transgenderism. Somebody in the chat was just saying that we should cover Lord of the Rings and J.R. Tolkien. I think at some point we should, for sure.
That definitely would be an interesting one, to just go step by step and decode the entire movie.
Give me an excuse to watch it again. At least the Lord of the Rings. Like the Hobbit was okay. I watched them not long ago and watched them all in succession because it's when Hollywood was still kind of like, they're obviously always been trying to show us stuff, but they're good movies in my opinion, especially the first three of like the Lord of the Rings series. They're fun and there's a lot of occult symbolism in them too. If you pay attention, I think it's in everything. So obviously they're, like, as we said, they're trying to control everything. Now I just want to break down just slowly a little bit just about the black cube. The black cube, this symbol has been used throughout history and its association with Saturn. The black cube and Saturn refers to the powerful god who ruled over Atlantis. And then you see this in cultures, like we said, all over the world. Taking a step further, NASA's photographs reveal a fascinating hexagonal storm that is on Saturn. Cube-like shape at Saturn's North Pole. It's an extraordinary feature that adds to the intrigue and symbolism that's associated with the black cube. And then the black cube's religious practices are deep-rooted in extensively across various cultures. It is believed that it is used for power and the influence of Saturn. Moreover, the cube carries connotations of esoteric knowledge and secret teachings. There is beliefs in the existence of a secret group, as we said, called the Cult of Saturn, which allegedly safeguards ancient knowledge and engages in black magic. It is said that the worship of Saturn in the black cult Yeah, the black cube cult aligns with Saturn's aim to control and dominate humanity and redirect all energy towards Saturn. Crazy too. Like I don't know, you see it everywhere. Like it is everywhere, right? And like
That
it
is
is.
interesting because everything is about energy exchange, right? And I've done
Yeah,
a
it sure
lot of
seems like
videos
it.
on the ad on my page about energy exchange. And so there is a certain energy shift when certain planets are in different alignment. And I have a feeling that Saturn might actually have the highest we should look into the scientific aspect of this to see if it has the highest, I guess, pull on the Earth, because a lot of different planets and gravitational pulls have different how should I say this, effects on
Yeah.
Earth down here, whether even if it's minute. And a lot of people notice it, like during the full moon. A lot of people are like, oh no, that's just a myth. But if you actually look at the statistics,
Yeah, yeah.
during full moons, a lot of people go insane and the hospitals are the busiest. You know what I mean?
There's more
So
crime. There's more assaults. Even animal behavior changes. It is
exactly.
really weird. And I can't, like, there's a whole talk that David Icke does about this stuff. And I love when people are like, he's a disinformation agent. He's woken more people up than I know of anybody else in the truther community. So even if he is disinformation, I don't know, he's almost lost like everything and went bankrupt and stuff like that. So I kind of, and he's been kicked out of so many countries. I do tend to lean towards that he is at least trying to awaken people and show them the truth. But he talks about, essentially, like, he's saying that like Saturn is connected to the moon, the Saturn moon matrix, and the moon is kind of like like a speaker, so to speak. It amplifies the energy from Saturn and is used as almost like it projects some of Saturn's energy onto the planet. And he explains why this is, and then it influences some behavior, the tides, all that stuff, and it's actually all coming from Saturn, and where he believes a lot of the reptilians are stationed. Because just because we see it like it's this planet, even Venus, there's people that claim that there's people living on, there's entities living on Venus, but even though we see it as this like molten, like on fire or whatever, right, planet, I'm not a scientist, I don't know how to explain this, but that on a different reality it looks different than what we perceive it as. So it's being used.
That is an interesting theory. You know why? Because there's so many conspiracy theories that the moon is just a satellite where we're being
Yeah.
observed and it is being reflected, because there's no way the sun could just make the moon the actual reflective thing. There's a lot of aspects of that that don't make sense. And so that would actually make sense, and why the, like, Saturn being evil and fear and all of that stuff would be amplified during full moons, and why they want us on Earth to be fearful, have
Yes.
negative thoughts, because negative energy is a lot stronger than love. Like it is a lot more amplified. And so if it is amplifying it back, like to Saturn, that actually makes sense to make some of the prophetic things that they want to come true on Earth, so that it could further feed Saturn in our negative energies.
And I do think there's like ancient deities or whatever, or like reptilians, or just dark, I don't know, dark, these I don't know, they are like energy vampires, and I do think they suck up our energy. I think that is possible. So in conclusion, exploring the worship of Saturn in Black Cube uncovers fascinating networks of ancient beliefs and this modern manifestations. It serves as a reminder of the hidden forces and plans that shape our world. By questioning, seeking knowledge, and striving for personal ascension, we can achieve spiritual liberation. Take the opportunity to educate yourself on these captivating subjects. And the more we learn, the better equipped we are to navigate through this world and make informed decisions. Remember, the power to break free from the lies within each of us. It lies within each of us. Let's embrace personal ascension and consciousness as we uncover the truth of Saturn worship and the Black Cube. Together, we can unearth the truth and create a brighter future for ourselves and all of humanity. It's time to take action and reclaim our power. So to end this on, we can kind of just talk about this slightly after. So this is supposedly sounds that they captured from Saturn.
Dude.
Isn't that weird?
That is insane. Like, that is crazy cool. Sorry, I was trying to get my microphone away from her breathing.
Yeah, it's
And this is why I don't do videos in my house ever. I just do it in my car because, like, you cannot get away from them. Like, they'll open. She knows how to open doors, so there's no point in having doors. And yeah, so that's
It's all
insane.
good. We'll make work what we can. That's not a dog. That's a small horse.
It actually is. She's 130 pounds and like literally just like pulls me everywhere. But she's just a big giant baby right now. Like this is her, like just big baby.
Yeah, it's so funny. That's creepy though, and it sounds like screaming and all sorts of like just. It sounds evil. I don't know how else to describe it. It does sound evil.
That's insane. It's insane that they got that sound, and I know that sound in movies has been used for horror, like sounds.
Oh,
You know what I'm
weird.
trying to say? So I don't know.
And who
I don't
knows
know.
what it's doing to us subconsciously, because there is, certain hertz of music that can subliminally brainwash you or just influence your mind. So who knows? I think this was a good introduction to Arcane Cast. This will be on its own RSS feed. Everybody that hears this on my side of the show, especially on audio, once this comes out, at least on audio, subscribe to it. Everybody watching, give me about a day, and then it's going to be up on its own RSS feed, and then you can follow that wherever you listen to podcasts. And then I think I'm going to release all the episodes that we have done together, even on my show, just so we have a foundation for the at least audio listeners, and then it will also have its own Rumble and its own YouTube. But for now, I think we should build up an episode or two, and then I already have the YouTube and the Rumble ready. You can find it if you look up Arcane Cast, but they'll just be there won't be any videos or anything yet. But I'll be releasing that probably this week, and then we're going to start a journey, maybe once a month, doing this and diving into some occult magic and theories and conspiracy theories. And there's a lot of stuff because I have some pretty good websites I could send you that break down a lot of this interesting stuff. So
Awesome. I am so down. I hope everybody enjoyed our little talk today, and
Yes.
hopefully we'll get into more detail next time and more interesting subjects as they come.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, everybody support the show, support Stranger Podcast, support you, support everybody. You can find my music on all music platforms under the Raptilian, and then Strange Brew has also got a lot of crazy things coming. We're gonna go down some very controversial roads on that show because I can't help but wanting to dive into some of the stuff that's happening in the world right now. So support, 5-star, like, share, review, all that stuff. Subscribe to the Rumble on both ends. Support Rumble as a platform in general, and then YouTube is YouTube. And yeah, guys, everybody, stay arcane, I guess, instead of stay strange.
We wander this existence, seeking the truth. Forbidden like Eve, eating the fruit. Knowledge they won't teach you in schools. Hidden beneath, deeper than roots. Buried in dirt, rise like a phoenix from under the earth. A spark from a flame is all that it takes, and dark days pass. Escape from the matrix with Arcane Cast.